The other day in Taekwondo class, we went over one-step sparring, so we're gonna kind of have a change in topic in the YouTube channel for a little bit, just to cover those partially for my learning, but also for some of my classmates' learning. So this video is gonna cover 1 through 5 of the WTF Taekwondo one-step sparrings. So starting off, we have number 1. Technically, when you do this, what you're going to do is you're going to go fist to fist, kind of like with Kali, we do tip to tip to figure out the range. But you're going to figure out the range with fist to fist distance, and then whoever is going to be the person punching for the one-step sparring that the one-step sparring is being used against, they'll go ahead and they'll go into a low block, and they'll look to the other person will kiya in order to get them to start. So with this, I'm using Bob, so obviously he's not going to do a low block, so I'll just go ahead and go. So for one-step sparring, number 1, I have a block, and then I have a punch. So again, one-step sparring, number 1. One-step sparring, number 1. Okay, now we're going to move to one-step sparring, number 2. So with this, kind of the same deal as far as the other person should be going into a low block, and then from there, you're gonna go ahead and kiya to let them know when to go. But this is gonna be a little bit different because the strike is gonna change. The first couple one-step sparrings, it's that palm block, and then you have your strike. So with this, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do block and knife hand to the throat. So again, notice with the footwork, it kind of follows the Kali Center footwork too. So I'm kind of doing a right 45 with that block and that strike. Okay, so now moving to number 3. So I have a block, and then I have a palm heel strike to the base. So again, block, palm heel. Block, palm heel. So going through those, I have 1 through 3. So I have block punch, I have block knife hand, and I have block palm heel. Now, so that's 1 through 3, so we have 4 and 5 to go. So going ahead and doing that block once more, then you're going to go into elbow. With this Taekwondo, every Taekwondo dojo I've trained with, they like to do the closed fist elbow. Kali Center, we do it open just because your bone is exposed, so it's a little bit more hard. That kind of goes into tempering and some of the other things that we do. It really depends on what style you're training, how you do elbows. When I studied with Ishinru karate, a lot of times they would try to hit with more the meat to protect the bones, but it kind of depends on your style. So I've kind of conditioned myself to have open hands, but you can always use different tactics for different things. So we have number 4. Number 4. And finally, number 5. So number 5 is a little bit different because it's a spear kind of to the eye, using Bob's face here. If you look right here on the corner of the eye, you're going for there, and you're gonna go 3 fingers, spear hand to the eye. It's kind of interesting because if you look at some of the acupuncture points for fighting, there are a couple right there. There are the ones right next to the eye, but there's also one right over, going back to anatomy, I think it's the glabella. I might be wrong. But there's so many very vital points on the face. Resuscitation point being one of them that's right there, kind of on the philtrum of the nose at the level of the nostrils. It looks a little bit different in vet med than it does in people, but for this you're going for one of those points right there. And to my understanding, it sounds like you're almost supposed to kind of cut into the eye with it. And that's another thing, if you read any of those pressure points, fighting with acupuncture books, because there's how many different ways to do fingertip attacks. One of the ways I've heard most frequently is kind of having your fingers in line, just so you don't break that middle finger. One of my favorites that I've read though, they kind of stack the fingers like that. I can't remember what it is, but it comes from, I think, more of the Chinese martial arts. So again, we have number 5, so that's a block and a strike. Block, strike. And with this, he would be a little bit more canted off. So, going 1 through 5, I have 1, I have 2, I have 3, I have 4, and I have 5. Okay, from here I'm going to stop this video and I'm going to make a different one for 6 through 10, and then we'll go on from there. After 10, to my understanding, it gets kind of repetitive because there's the same strikes, there's just additional strikes added.